and evening hours. I'm KIRO 7 Pinpoint Meteorologist Nick Allard.
And right now it is mostly cloudy, 63 degrees in downtown Seattle. I'm Ursula Royteen.
Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. KIRO Radio 97.3 FM. News and talk. Powered by the Pacific Northwest.
The Big Lead is brought to you by 3010 Weight Loss for Life.
The Dori Monson Show on KIRO Radio. This is The Big Lead.
Now I have a question for Pramila Jayapal and Bernie Sanders. Since you're supporting this deadbeat program where people would just have their student loan debt forgiven, are you also going to provide reparations for those of us parents who, in my wife's and my case, we invested in the GET program? We sacrificed when we didn't have much money, when our girls were very little, so we could amortize their college expenses over 18 years, so we could pay for their college ourselves, so they wouldn't have any debt. And we told our girls, you want to go to private, you want to go out of state, we might be able to help you with the difference, but it will be a loan. We're going to pay for your in-state tuition. So for the people who made good choices, are you going to give us our money back too? Or are you only going to do it for the people who, it's not always who have made bad choices. The colleges operating in concert with the government, which operates the student loan program, they have encouraged irresponsibility and encouraged people to go to college who shouldn't be going to a four-year school. But I'd love to know, for all of the kids who worked their way through college so they wouldn't have debt, who forego parties on Friday and Saturday nights so they could go to their job, for all of the kids who started working in high school so they could pay for their own college, for all of the parents who started saving when their kids were born, are you going to give everybody our money back too? Or are you only going to do it for the most irresponsible of Americans? I think I know the answer because I know what socialism appeals to. And it's the most irresponsible deadbeats among us. And that's why Pramila Jayapal and Bernie Sanders, it's just, hey, we'll give you free money. Vote for us. We'll give you money. And, of course, that's a message directed at losers. We're coming to you from the Carter Subaru studio. We're also streaming on Facebook Live for The Big Lead at 2. And before I get to all the local news that I have to get to, I do have a fake news update where MSNBC this weekend, they put a crazy woman on television. I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's a woman who, she's a columnist for Vogue magazine, or for Elle magazine, and she says that Donald Trump sexually abused her in the 1990s. So she went on with Lawrence O'Donnell, stop the hammering. And he said, are you going to press charges? Because he really wanted her to press charges. And you could just tell by the way this woman talked that she's just some crazy woman. She just wrote a book. So she's using this to try to sell copies of a book. But listen to her reason why she would not press charges against the president today for what she alleges happened 25 years ago.
Would you consider bringing a rape charge against Donald Trump for this? Why not?
I would find it disrespectful to the women who are down on the border, who are being raped around the clock down there without any protection. They're young women. They've, tried to come into the country. They're, as you know, they're there by the thousand. The women have very little protection there. It would just be disrespectful if and mine was 3 minutes. I'm a mature woman. I can handle it. I can keep going. My life has gone on. I'm a happy woman. But for the women down there, and for the women, actually, around the world, in every culture this is going on, no matter high in society or low in society, it just seems disrespectful that I would bring it just doesn't make sense to me.
Nothing about that makes sense. It's just a bizarre answer. And it's just a crazy person who wants to sell books. And because she alleges something against Donald Trump, they put her on the air on MSNBC. And then that you can tell by her answer. Out of respect for the women who are getting raped around the clock on the border, she's not going to press rape charges against somebody who attacked her. That's just the ramblings of a nut, quite obviously. And yet that's all it takes. That's the standard to get on national cable news these days, apparently, is as long as you're accusing the right person, you can be as nonsensical in your ramblings as can be. And that's why it's fake news. That's why you know that so much of this is just a bunch of garbage. Okay, with that as mere prelude, let's get to the big lead.
The Big Lead, Dori Monson Show exclusive.
We are going to give away some Mariner tickets a little bit later in the Big Lead. We will give you a cue to call. Not yet. We have not opened up the phone lines. But the number to dial when I do is 888-97-3 KIRO. But don't call it yet. But the fifth caller is going to win 2 tickets to the July 3rd Mariners game. True to the red, white, and blue fireworks night, the Mariners host the St. Louis Cardinals. And they're going to light up the sky with a post-game fireworks show. And if you want to make sure you get to that game and the fireworks, get your tickets at mariners.com. You can hear that whole Cardinals-Mariners series on 710 ESPN Seattle. But I'll give you a cue to call in a few minutes. And the fifth caller, we will give you a pair of tickets to see the Mariners and some fireworks coming up on July 3rd. Up next in the Big Lead.
The Big Lead. I told you so.
Last week we were talking about, and I mentioned it last hour, about the woman who was raped twice down in White Center. And then, when she was, her attacker was released from jail, she was attacked brutally once again by her rapist. And it is Jay Inslee's sanctuary state policy that led directly to that assault of a rape victim. In fact, I talked with the rape victim last week. That's what she believes. I talked with ICE last week. And on this show, Immigration and Customs said, yeah, if this was a normal state, when a 2-time rapist who's also here illegally is released from jail, then they would contact federal law enforcement and they could begin the legal proceedings to determine if that person should be deported. And given that they are a 2-time rapist who's an illegal, they likely would be. But we cannot do that in Washington state because of Jay Inslee's sanctuary state law. And so rape victims can be assaulted by their rapist now. Our friend Brandy Cruz at Q13 News, she wanted to get hold of the Judges Commission and say, why would you just release this rapist who's an illegal, who could be deported? And here's the response that Brandy Cruz got. Brandy's not feeling too good today, so she's going to come on with us tomorrow to tell us all about it. But she went on Q13 and she explained what happened when she was emailing with the Judges Communications rep.
So to fill in gaps in the story, we reached out to other agencies, like the King County Superior Court, for instance. We wanted to know whether there would be an effort to bring Carranza Ramirez back to the U.S. for violating conditions of his release by allegedly attacking his victim again. The communications director for the court offered us this bizarre email. She wrote, "He does have warrants out, but he probably won't be, we probably won't be, exercising the extradition process. Winky face." Do you see it down there? Let's remove that super quickly. Winky face. We probably won't be using the extradition process. Yes, that is a winky face in response to an email about a convicted rapist. A winky face. Keep in mind, this is not someone we are unusually friendly or familiar with. But we kept sending emails back and forth, trying to fill in the gaps.
So that's how our judge's spokesperson responds? A winky face emoji in explaining why they will not be extraditing a rapist who's been illegally in the country and now is in Mexico, according to his Facebook page. So, I mean, this is the kind of sickness, and this is a sickness, when public officials and spokespeople for judges somehow think that it's funny, apparently, because the winky face emoji you don't use for something serious. So they must think that it's funny that a rape victim got assaulted allegedly by her rapist. And Brandy tried to follow up with this bizarre bit of communications.
But that doesn't even resemble an answer to our question. So we went back and forth into the evening. She sent me a link to a completely unrelated policy. I eventually asked her if there was someone else who could answer our questions, someone above her. She said no. So I reminded her in an email, this is my job, and it is in fact your job. We have asked you a direct and very simple question multiple times and have not received a response even somewhat related to that question. I also reminded her that her job is funded by the taxpayer, by the very people we're trying to get answers for. So that was our experience with the court. Hopefully we had more luck elsewhere, right? Well, it turns out that elected leaders who push for sanctuary policies don't jump at the chance to explain whether those policies may have hurt someone.
Well, and in this case, it clearly did. It clearly did, but they won't take ownership of that. Instead, they rely on their bogus lies that illegals commit crimes at a lower rate than citizens. And how can they say that? Well, because they don't keep any track of crimes committed by illegals. They have no stats. And so they just repeat this same lie over and over. And it's exactly what I've been telling you for years now about sanctuary. It is built on lies, and when a sheriff's deputy, Ryan Thompson, and yes, I mention his name all the time, because while Jay Inslee wants to forget him, the Thompson family demanded that Inslee stay away from their loved one's memorial service. Jay Inslee wants to forget him. I'm not going to let you forget Ryan Thompson. When Ryan Thompson was murdered by an illegal while serving as a member of the Kittitas County Sheriff's Department, that's tied to sanctuary. When a rape victim is assaulted by her rapist, that is directly tied to sanctuary. That guy in a normal state without radical politicians would have been deported without having been able to commit the assault. He would have stayed in custody after his bizarrely light 9-month sentence for raping someone twice. And then he would have stayed in custody through his deportation instead of being free to roam the streets and assault his rape victim again. This is the kind of sickness that we're dealing with. And they think it's a joke. A spokesperson for the judge sent Brandy a winky face emoji in saying, we're not going to extradite this guy. Wink, wink. Why would we? We don't have to. Jay Inslee says we got to let everyone go if they're illegal. They think it's a joke. They can do winky emojis in an inquiry about a rape victim being assaulted. This is the kind of sickness we're dealing with. And it's serious. It's deep. It's relentless, the sickness that pervades Jay Inslee and Bob Ferguson and Dow Constantine and Jenny Durkin and that court judge and the court judge's winky face emoji spokesperson. We're talking about really super sick people here. There is simply no other way to characterize it. And while they can get away with trying to say they commit crimes at a lower rate, we know their lies. You, by virtue of listening to the show, know their lies. And at least with some of us, they can't wink their way out of it. Next up, in the Big Lead.
The Big Lead, Dori Monson Show exclusive.
Speaking of Dow Constantine, one of the many offenders in this whole sanctuary madness. So a few weeks ago on this show, we broke the news of Dow Constantine going out drinking pretty much every night and having King County Sheriff's Executive Protection Unit detail drive him as his private Uber while he goes out drinking. Now, our sources tell us that since we broke that story, here on the Dori Monson Show and KIRO Radio and our great reporter Carolyn Osorio. Since we broke that story, a defiant Dow Constantine is still going out drinking and asking the taxpayers to provide his executive protection unit as an Uber service. We're told these, and I've heard some other things. I can't give specifics yet, but we've heard some other specific things that Dow Constantine is doing, and I'm not going to say what because it might clue him in into who our multiple sources are. But let me tell you about pictures and email I got right before the show today from listener Paul, who said, "This just adds to the narrative you've talked about recently. I was at the Chelan Cafe in West Seattle in the Ebb Tide room, the bar, on Sunday. Here is proof that our King County executive does love his beverages. As he and his associate noticed me taking a picture, he said, 'Don't worry, we're working.' At the same time, he was trying to walk out, assuming his lady friend would pay the bill. She said, and I quote, 'No, you're paying the bill, Dow.' He walked back and paid the drink tab, probably on our dime. Here are my pictures. It ticks me off," he said. So the first picture, it's Dow Constantine and some unnamed woman at the bar. He's holding a beer. That's what our listener saw. We called our listener, and that's what he saw.
Enjoying a little quiet time on Sunday, and stopped at the Chelan Cafe's Ebb Tide room to have beers as well. And lo and behold, I've seen Dow in there more than a few times. Anyways, lo and behold, he walked in and went and sat down with the lady that's in the picture with him in a booth. And, and I've heard Dori talking about this story for a little while, and so it's kind of been infuriating me as well about his little private security detail and all that to take him bar hopping.
And so when Dow tried to leave?
They got up to leave, and that's when I took a picture, and then he tried to immediately walk out, and he got about halfway to the door, and she just said, "Hey, you need to pay the bill, we're working." And so he turned around reluctantly and went back and handed out his credit card and paid the tab. And then, I heard him say, "Oh, great, now we're going to be on the news," because, he saw me taking his picture or whatnot of him with the beer in his hand and paying the tabs.
Yeah, and so we're going to check and see if the taxpayers are paying for Dow Constantine's booze, because the taxpayers have had it.
Well, I don't know about most people, but when I'm working, I'm not allowed to drink on the job. So I don't know. He had maybe a laptop bag with him. I didn't see them conducting any business.
And the point that I've made many times is if there's some emergency, natural disaster, terror attack in King County, is Dow Constantine fit to run King County emergency management in the case of an emergency?
Dishonest. And he's our top elected official in King County, for crying out loud. As Dori has said in his previous segments, is he ready to conduct business in an emergency situation on a Sunday afternoon after he's been drinking? Give me a break.
And so I am announcing the launch of Operation Dow. And I'm asking your help. If any of you see Dow Constantine out drinking, in the evenings, on weekends, because we'll check it against his schedule. We'll continue to get public disclosure requests of his official schedule. We'll see if he's expensing his booze to the taxpayers, and we will stay on this. But as the listener did yesterday, if you see Dow Constantine out drinking, take a picture and send it to me. And we'll try to hold this government official accountable, because it sounds like even as we busted him on this show, that he's not modifying his behavior much. And I think that's worrisome as a taxpayer. Okay, real quick, finally in the big lead.
The Big Lead, Dori Monson Show exclusive.
The fifth caller right now is going to win a pair of tickets to the July 3rd Mariners game against the Cardinals, and you will also enjoy fireworks after the game. Caller number 5 right now at 888-97-3 KIRO, 888-97-3-5476 gets the tickets. That is your Big Lead. We're going to check the news for you, and then our awesome audio of the day coming up next.
The Big Lead on KIRO Radio.